everybody and welcome. I'm Rafe with the Prospect Park Alliance, here with Tracey today from Tracey Boyce to learn a little bit about making candles. Some of the earliest candles come from the Roman times, and they were often made of congealed animal fat known as tallow. They would be made of beef fat, they would be made of sheep fat, and that's how candles were made for 1,000 years. What we think of today as wax candles would have been very expensive throughout history. If you think of harvesting beeswax from a beehive, it could be a very tricky process and there's not that much wax there. Candles as we know them today became much more popular beginning in the 1800s when people were able to begin collecting oil from whales as well as taking oil out of the ground. And the wax that we know of today is often derived from all different types of oil products. So today we're going to be making a traditional dipped candle, the type of candle that would have been made throughout history, a very simple process, and then Tracey will show us how she makes some wonderful, wonderful scented candles with Tracey Boyce. So Tracey, in the pot here, we've melted some basic paraffin wax, and what we're going to do, we each have a candle wick tied to a stick. A candle wick is a piece of braided string. And so what we're going to do is we're going to dip it in this pot of melted wax, and then we're going to dip it in this bin of cold water. And as we go from wax to water and wax to water, we're going to see this candle get bigger and bigger and bigger. Do you want to go?
Yeah, sure.
Well, you dip first.
You got it.
Dip it in the wax and then into the water. We'll alternate here. When you go in the wax, I'll go in the water.
Got it.
The whole process of making a dipped candle does take about 5 minutes. I'm just pulling it taut so it stays nice and straight and doesn't get curled up. Any of that extra wax we could just pull right off. I like to tie a little knot at the end of the wick and it helps that wax gather on there. Similar to how you might find a little metal disc at the bottom of a modern candle wick. In just a few dips, they're already starting to get bigger. You can see it's now not just a piece of string, it stays nice and straight as the wax builds up. One tip I always tell people making candles at home is that it's important to let the wax cool off slightly before you start dipping. If the wax is too hot, all the wax that's built up on the wick will melt right back off into the pot. So you want it to cool off just a little bit before you actually start making your candle. Yours is growing so much faster than mine.
Yeah. I think it's because I got a few of those wax bits on there. This can definitely be a little arm workout for the day. Going back and forth for 5 minutes.
Definitely, definitely. If you are considering making candles at home with your family, I just recommend you always do it with adult supervision because this can be hot. At the Lefferts Historic House in Prospect Park, we generally start making candles with kids about 6 years old. Wow, yours is really starting to shape up.
Yeah.
At this point, since we have gloves on, you can even give it a little squeeze if you want to kind of smooth it out and get rid of some of those lumps. It's very malleable when it's warm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Do I give it a few more dips?
Yeah.
I think you won the candle race making today, Tracy.
Yay. Seeing this makes you really think about other small businesses that are doing the dip candles.
Yeah.
And now you can appreciate like the price points that these things are at, like how much work actually goes into it for one candle.
Definitely. And throughout history, this is how people would have illuminated their homes. So it would have been a family process to gather together to make candles.
Wow.
So you had enough candles to get you through the winter and to illuminate your house during some of the darker seasons.
I can totally see this as a quarantine activity for parents and kids alike. I'll probably end up doing this with my niece.
It's definitely a nice touch whether you're having a nice dinner or a birthday or some sort of occasion to be able to light a handmade candle.
Exactly. I think the birthday candle idea is a really good one because it's smaller and it will be a really quicker process.
Yeah. Why don't you give it another dip and we'll shape it up and we'll call it a wrap because that's looking pretty great to me.
Yeah.
If you are going to burn your hand-dipped candles at home, I also recommend you do it under supervision. Because they're handmade, you want to keep an eye on it so they don't tip over or anything like that. They're not perfectly balanced like a store-bought tapered candle might be.
And how long would it take for this to cure?
Generally, I do it overnight.
Overnight? Okay.
Yeah.
I know with soy wax, it's a little bit longer.
How long do the soy candles cure for?
I cure my soy coconut wax candles for 5 days minimum.
Okay.
Sometimes more, depending on how many orders there are. But 5 days is the minimum that I cure them for. And it allows, and that's another thing, if you're working with fragrance, it allows the fragrance to really seep in and really
That makes sense. That makes sense.
If you're doing an unscented candle, clearly you don't really have to wait for that cure time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your candle looks so good.
And I guess because they're pretty malleable, you can just roll them on the table.
Exactly.
Smooth it out.
Exactly.
Okay.
At this point, maybe we could put it to the side and we'll let it cool off before we cut that candle off the stick. Here, I'll take that from you. Yeah. All right, Tracy, we've seen my way of making a candle. I am really excited to learn about your process now.
Yeah, of course. So I'm just gonna grab the...
Sure. I could bring that over for us.
Okay. Other way. Okay, so as you can see, candle making there are definitely many ways to go about it. My way of doing it is I have this wax melter that I purchased online. It has a little what would you call it? Like the plug side with a thermometer gauge, and it has a spigot on the other side that allows you to just, as it melts, you can just pour it out easily.
So you can control the exact temperature you're melting the wax.
You can control the exact temperature. I usually, for this pot usually holds about, this is a 10-pound wax melter. I've been able to squeeze 13 pounds in here when it's fully melted. Try not to do that though because it does seep over. So what we're gonna do is I have a scale here, and we're gonna be doing 8-ounce candles in these jars. So first,
can you use any jar you have at home for this?
You can use any jar you have as long as it's glass or ceramic. You just can't do paper, clearly.
Of course.
But anything that's non-flammable will do really well.
Great.
So first I'm gonna have us clean out our jars.
Okay.
And I have some alcohol in a spray bottle. Here you go.
Thank you.
So what you do is you just spray a few sprays.
Okay.
and just wipe it out. Just to get any dust particles out of the glass. You don't want any reason to cause a fire hazard whatsoever. If this is for your own personal use, what you can do is just blow into the jar to blow out the dust in lieu of a spray bottle. And then what we're gonna do is you're gonna grab your wick.
Okay.
Now this is similar to the wick that we use for the dip candle.
Yeah.
You mentioned the little tabs.
Yeah.
This is used to help center the wick in the jar. So when you put it in the middle of the jar, you see that it as you pour the wax in, it's gonna hold that in place.
Okay.
But sometimes some people, if it's a longer wick, they'll tie it on a twig or something, and then they put it in and then pour the wax like that.
Gotcha.
So those you can use also with the cylinder, those candles that you see in the store, those cylinder ones. You can do a whole bunch of different colors and things like that. So what I have, we're gonna use the little wax tab stickers.
Okay.
I personally use a glue gun at home just for convenience, and it makes it a lot more easier for me because sometimes I pour at a higher temperature.
Yeah.
So what you're gonna do is just stick that right on the bottom of it, and it's a perfect fit. Yeah. And then you're gonna peel that tab back.
Okay.
And aim to put it right in the center of the jar, or as close to the center as you can. And you can either use your fingers to press down, or you can use a popsicle stick as well to press down.
Gotcha.
Popsicle sticks are really so much better for the kiddos. They can just grab it and like, okay, this works. Just to those ones that want to do it all by themselves.
That's great. That helps make sure that our wick is right perfectly in the center.
Exactly. So now, what you're gonna do, put your jar aside.
Okay.
And now we have a pitcher. You're gonna place the pitcher on the scale, turn it on, make sure that everything's at 0. And what we're gonna do is grab the pitcher and fill it up until you hit 7.5 ounces of wax. Now this wax was already pre-melted. A good pouring temp is between 140 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Simply because when you want to add the oil, it can't be too hot, otherwise the oils will evaporate.
Oh, yeah, very interesting.
So a lot of people use fragrance oils or essential oils or both. I'm one of the few that uses both. Okay. And I do that because when you're making scented candles, although there is a say that essential oil candles are cleaner burning, but there are some natural fragrance oils that you can use. And the thing that I don't particularly care for about essential oil candles only is because sometimes you have to use a lot of essential oils in there, and it's tricky with making it. You can have a good day, you can have a bad day. Sometimes you just don't know, and they're way more highly flammable than a regular fragrance oil candle.
Yeah.
So a fragrance oil is actually a mix of essential oils and other fragrances with a base carrier oil, and they use that to make it really more potent. Cool. So just needs a little bit more.
Does it make it more stable so a higher temperature won't necessarily evaporate it or degrade the scent?
Not necessarily, but you could use less fragrance oil for, let's say for this candle in particular, we'll be doing half an ounce of fragrance oil. If I put a half an ounce of essential oil in here, it will not scent it as strongly. Okay. You need that boost of extra fragrance and the basic oil in there. So this is at 7.5. So we're gonna open up these 2 scents. We have a Caribbean teakwood, and these fragrance oils you can be purchased online at any candle maker store. You can walk into a Michael's and grab some fragrance oils, or if you have essential oils, you can usually mix it. So for my candles on the side here, I use a mix of the fragrance oils, and then I get a few essential oils, and I boost the scent.
Oh, I can smell that as soon as
you
you open the bottle.
The second I open it, see?
You all wish you were here smelling this.
So we have some pipettes here.
Okay.
So you're gonna fill this up until it hits 8 ounces. Okay. And what you're gonna do is you can choose how many or how little of each oil that you want. I'm just gonna do a random assortment here. Do 3 droppers full of this, and then put the remainder of the Caribbean teakwood. And this smells really good. And just a little bit more.
We're measuring this to get exactly 8 ounces, so it fits perfectly in the jar that we have.
Yes. And then you're gonna grab that same popsicle stick you used earlier. And what you're gonna do is stir it. I would say stir for at least 30 to 45 seconds. I make larger batches of this, so I never really make them in this small of a batch. One batch for me will pour about 12 to 15 of these jars.
Okay.
So I usually stir for 2 minutes at that point.
Just to make sure that oil is evenly mixed through everything.
Evenly distributed, making sure that it's very well absorbed in the oil, in the wax. Because what can happen is, let's say you pour the oil in, and then sometimes when you look, you know how oil and water doesn't mix?
Yeah.
You can see the swirls in there?
Yeah, totally.
That happens in candle making too.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
So you can use that as a factor to say, okay, this is not well mixed yet. But yeah, so because I've been doing this for a while now, I've just timed everything. So 30, 45 seconds is perfect for individual candles. And then if it's a larger batch, I do it for 2 minutes straight. Again, an arm workout in a good way.
Have you always been interested in candle making and different crafts like this?
Not candle making specifically, no. But I actually started in 2016 over the summer, and I told myself, okay, what can I do? I knew I always wanted to do a home decor company, and I just wasn't sure how to start it. And I figured candle making seems easy. Let's just do this. I was wrong. In the beginning, it was totally not easy. There's like this feeling in the candle making community that nobody wants to share their secrets on how to make a candle and how to make a smooth top or remove the wet spots on the sides. And that annoyed me. So when I first got into candle making, I said, okay, I watched a whole bunch of videos on YouTube, Googled my heart out, and I found my own way of making it. And it just worked for me, and it's been working all these years. Of course, it's still a work in progress. There are definitely some days and some batches where all my candles are completely horrible. And there are days when it's like perfect on the first pour. It's like, oh, this is beautiful. But it's definitely a work in progress. It's like daily training, like practicing and practicing.
Always learning and always growing.
Exactly. There's so many factors that go into it in terms of how to create a perfect candle. But of course, perfect is subjective to who you are.
Well, thanks for teaching us some of your secret recipe today.
Yeah. So now when you're going to place your glass back on the scale and press the power button to clear it to 0. And then we're just going to pour it in slowly. And you want to be mindful with how you're pouring it as well. If you pour too fast, you'll end up with air bubbles. And then you'll end up with little pits and divots in the candle when it hardens. And there is a way to fix that, but yeah. Okay, so we actually made enough to do 2 batches.
Awesome.
So this is perfect. So now we have another popsicle stick. This one has a hole in it.
I see.
Then we're just gonna pop the wick straight through the hole. And there we go.
So we have a hole in our popsicle stick. We're gonna thread the wick through there, and it's gonna make sure it stays nice and straight as the wax is cooling.
Yes. And then, voila. We're just gonna wait for that to harden. And then you're gonna put your glass down and you can pour the remaining.
Nice and slow so there's no air bubbles.
Exactly. You can just keep pouring.
All the way? All right. I guess we measured it, so it's exactly enough. I don't have to worry too much.
And there you go. That's it.
Perfect.
And now, and the best thing about this is because the popsicle stick is completely flat, it won't dip into the actual wax, so it'll still set pretty smoothly.
Great. It's pretty simple to thread that through there.
And of course, if you don't have a popsicle stick, you can also use a clothespin. I tend to use clothespins when I'm making my larger batches, and that allows me to pull it a little bit more taut and just have it all there. So I have like hundreds of clothespins in my office, just all over the place. But they work perfectly.
Awesome. How long does these take to cool?
These usually take about an hour to an hour and a half to cool off, to harden, I mean.
Yeah.
And then after that, you wait 5 days for it to fully cure and for the oils to really solidify and like melt into the wax.
It takes time to marinate almost,
marinate,
and all really mix
exactly.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. So patience is key. So have it sitting there for 5 days at least, and then when you're done, what you can do is you can get either a pair of scissors, or I have a wick trimmer here, which is perfect for candles because it has little grooves in there that if you light a candle and then you trim it, it'll catch whatever black soot is there, so it won't fall into the candle and
Keep
create
the
a fire.
candle looking beautiful, keep it safe.
Exactly. And I have a finished version here. There you go.
Beautiful.
Finished version. So this wick hasn't been trimmed yet, so I'm gonna have you trim it actually.
Oh, very cool.
What you're gonna do?
I've never used one of these. How close do I clip it?
So you want it at least a quarter of an inch high.
Okay.
So you can pretty much eyeball it. Yep, that should be fine. Yep.
There we go.
There you go.
Finished candle.
Yes. And then all you do is pop this back on. Perfect for gifting, for your kids, your kid's favorite teacher. There you go.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today, Tracey.
Thanks for having me.
It was
this
wonderful
is fun.
to meet you. Yeah.
Yes, you as well. Thank you guys.